Is that better? Oh, excellent. Right. So I'm chairing the first part of the meeting until item 4. I'd like to remind the Joint Board that the public part of the meeting will be recorded and placed on Tayside Valuation Joint Board's website for public viewing. Members should keep microphones on mute throughout the meeting unless they are speaking. I will now ask the clerk to take us through the agenda.
Thank you. I will take a roll call for the minute. Vice Convener Cuthbert.
Present.
Councillor Black.
Present.
Bailey Roberts.
Morning, I'm here.
Councillor Short.
Good morning, I'm here.
I've received apologies from Councillor Scullin. I've also received apologies from Councillor Shears. I've received apologies from Bailey McPherson. Councillor Nicholl.
I am here.
Councillor Fotheringham.
Present, thank you.
Councillor Shepherd.
Present.
I've received apologies from Councillor Durnall. Councillor McCall.
Present.
Councillor Welch.
Could you note apologies for Councillor Welch? She can't make it this morning.
No problem. Councillor Anderson. I've received apologies from Councillor Smith, so I believe Councillor Forbes is substituting today.
Morning, I'm here.
And that completes the That takes us to item 2. Are there any declarations of interest? No, I see no declarations, so that takes us to item 3, membership. The first is for Dundee City Council. The Joint Board is asked to note that Dundee City Council appointed Councillor Jimmy Black as a member of the Tayside Valuation Joint Board as a replacement for Deputy Lord Provost Kevin Cordell, who has resigned.
Can this be noted? Okay, I'll take that as agreement. And
Thank you. And the second is for Angus Council. The Joint Committee is asked to note the appointments made by Angus Council, which are for noting.
can this be noted? I'll take that as agreement.
Thank you. So item 4, appointment of convener. The Joint Board is asked that following the decision taken by Dundee City Council to appoint Councillor Jimmy Black to the Joint Board as a replacement for Deputy Lord Provost Kevin Cordell, that an appointment is required from Dundee City Council for a convener.
I see that Lynn Short has her hands up. Are there any nominations?
I would like to nominate Councillor Black, please.
Thank you. And Christina Roberts?
I'll second it.
I'll take that as carried then. Is that agreed by everybody?
Agreed.
Okay, if you give us a second, I'll switch seats with Councillor Black.
Thank you for that. So that takes us on to item 5.
Thank you. Appointment of spokesperson. Following the decision made by Angus Council, the Joint Board is requested to appoint a spokesperson from Angus Council.
So do we have any nominations?
And I'm happy to second that, convener. Thank you.
Good. Did we get a nomination there, though? Somebody needs to nominate you.
I'll nominate Councillor Gavin Nicholl.
Excellent. And I'll second that. Good. So can this be agreed? which means we are on item 6, appointment of treasurer.
Thank you. We're asked to note that the appointment of Paul Thompson as treasurer to the joint board.
And we're noting that, and so can this be noted? And that takes us to item 7. We're fairly racing through this.
Thank you. Item 7, minute of previous meeting. The minute of the previous meeting of the 27th of January 2025 is submitted for approval.
Are we agreed the minute of the last meeting? Obviously, I wasn't there.
Agreed.
Agreed? Thank you. So item 8, electoral print and postal services. And so into the business now. Darrell, do you want to tell us about this and give us the main points?
Yes, good morning. This agenda note is seeking the approval to extend their existing print and postal services contract for a period of 12 months.
Oh, yeah.
Start again. Good morning. This agenda note is seeking approval to extend their existing print and postal services contract for a period of 12 months. The services in the past have been procured through a Scottish Government framework, and the Scottish Government are still going through the process of appointing a preferred supplier going forwards, and there's no guarantees that this process will be concluded within the next fortnight, which is when our existing arrangement expires. The Scottish Government have been in touch to suggest that we put contingency arrangements in place to ensure service delivery meantime. Our existing supplier is in a position to offer a 12-month extension on existing terms, and this provides peace of mind and continuity as we approach a busy period of print and postal activity, including the annual canvass, the 2026 revaluation preparations, and the forthcoming Scottish Parliamentary election. I seek approval to conclude the extension on that basis.
Councillor Forbes.
Yeah, thanks. I'm a substitute, so this question may already have been answered, and maybe my colleagues know the answer, but why is it taking so long to get a supplier in place?
So that it's pass is the answer. I believe, speaking to some procurement officials at Dundee City Council, they've said that with such a large procurement process that this is common from time to time. But essentially, the benefit of working through the framework is that it allows the Scottish Government to do the work and take the tender process on. They would appoint a preferred bidder, which would allow all manner of public authorities to sign up and use that framework. So I don't know the exact details as to why there's been a delay. I have been advised that they're making good progress, but there were just concerns noted when we asked when that was likely to be concluded, and that was the advice that we were given at the time.
Okay, thanks. So just to be clear then, the issue doesn't lie within the valuation board or Dundee Council, it lies with the Scottish Government. Is that the case?
Yeah, the framework that we've used in the past and would envisage continuing to use is one that's found within the Scottish Government, so we are awaiting an outcome. The option would have been perhaps to extend for a lesser time period, but for the reasons stated and for the upcoming busy period that we have ahead, 12 months was on offer, and it made sense to extend for that period. Sorry, hopefully everyone can hear me okay.
Is everyone
thank
hearing, you. Is everyone hearing Darrell okay? No one's struggling to hear.
He keeps leaning away from the microphone, so I can't hear him properly.
Aha. Well, I wonder what can be done about that.
I'll adjust.
Aye, maybe snuggle up to Councillor Cuthbert. Councillor McCall.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm just wondering, I presume when you talk about the Scottish Government, you're talking about Scotland Excel? Awarding the contract, that's normally the contracting body?
It's the Scottish Procurement and Property Directive of the Scottish Government. I don't know if they're commonly known as that.
That's not the same thing, but anyway, that's not really my point. What I'm wondering is the national framework, is it been extended in its entirety, or is this something we're just doing on our own?
Can you give me a bit more detail on that?
Well, normally if there was still, if there was an ongoing contract negotiations or tender process, that would necessitate the extension of the incumbent. or arrangements that would be done at a national level, and then we would just draw down from that. So I'm just wondering whether or not there has been an extension at national level, and if not, why not? And if there is, then we would automatically download from that, access that.
The advice we were given was to make contingency arrangements with our own suppliers, but Paul was looking to come in there, I think.
Yep.
Thank you, Convener. So it was just to confirm, it is my understanding that this particular contract is one that's set by the Scottish Government rather than Scotland Excel on behalf of the local authorities. As the assessor has confirmed, it is my understanding as well that the delay is with the Scottish Government in terms of re-establishing the framework at a national level, but we could certainly confirm that for members out with the meeting.
No, that much I understand, Paul. Thank you. What I'm really trying to understand is, as part of this ongoing tender process, it wouldn't be unusual for a contracting authority to put in, for a national contract, to put in contingency arrangements so that its members and constituent bodies could access ongoing services. So I'm just curious to know whether or not at national level contingency has been put in place, or whether or not each participant to this contract is expected to go off and do their own thing.
Darrell, can you answer that?
Yeah, so it's the latter of the two that you put forward there. So there's no widespread national extension or contingency arrangements. It's individual contracts that we've signed up to through the framework.
Now, I can't see anyone else wanting to
Okay, thank you.
So can we agree to the terms of the note? Agreed. That's item 9. So it's a duty to report to the Scottish Parliament on the number of assessors and the availability of resources, and the report which follows. Darrell, do you want to give us the main points?
Yes, so this is a new statutory requirement arising from the Non-Domestic Rates Act regarding the resourcing of the non-domestic rating function. The report will be required at 3-yearly intervals going forward, and this agenda note is to formally record the report I submitted on behalf of the board ahead of the statutory deadline of the 31st of May this year. Following submission, copies were sent by email to all board members and officers, and a copy is included within today's papers, which the board are asked to note.
There's a number of issues in the report. One is that there's more work on the assessor, there are more things to do than there used to be. But the important point which follows is that we have enough resources to cope with that demand as things stand. Is that a fair summary, Darrell?
Yeah, that's a fair assessment. Obviously, the budget was agreed at the last meeting in January, but I think part of the challenge with the reporting frequency is budget planning is a year-to-year activity, and we're looking to kind of suggest whether we're appropriately resourced for the 3 years ahead. So in basic terms, yeah, it's a positive report at this point in time.
Now, the report was sent out before being approved by the Valuation Board, but Darrell circulated it fairly extensively, I think, so that people could see what was in it. And I certainly don't have any disagreement with it. So are there any questions or points on this report? In which case, can we agree to the terms of the note?
Agree.
So item 10, capital expenditure. Paul, this is for you.
Thank you, Convener. So this is an agenda note just to provide some further detail on the board's capital expenditure programme. At the previous meeting in January, Councillor McCall had asked for some further detail on the types of IT equipment that the overall capital budget was being used for. So just to confirm, that programme is spent on a combination of laptops, docking stations, digital scanners, tablets, etc. So we note the query at the previous meeting, and moving forward, the capital programme summary as it's sent for approval will include further detail in terms of the items to be purchased, but happy to take any questions.
Well, do we have any questions? Councillor McCall, are you happy with that answer?
Kind of, but thank you for now. I'll look forward to the annual accounts and seeing what's in there. Thank you.
Okay. If there are no other questions, can we approve the report? This is on to item 12, which is risk management and business continuity. Bit of a blockbuster report. My arithmetic's correct. No, I'm not going to try that. Wait a minute, 60, 81, 82 pages.
Apologies, Councillor, that was
Oh.
on item 11. Yeah.
Have we missed one?
Yeah.
There you are, the corporate plan. We wouldn't like to miss that, would we? It's okay, excuse me, my first day in charge. Okay, the corporate plan. Darrell, do you want to introduce the report?
Yes. Yeah, this report seeks approval of the board's corporate plan and service plan for the years 2025 to 2028. The corporate plan and service plan is presented in a 3-yearly cycle with annual updates. The introduction section lists a number of significant changes which have occurred since the last 3-yearly plan was approved. Significant reforms in both non-domestic rates and electoral registration have introduced a number of new statutory obligations which have been captured in the service plan. The governance section has been expanded to better reflect the range of statutory obligations required around data protection, FOI and records management. Notable work streams for the financial year ahead include the absent vote reapplication process, which is underway, preparations for the 2026 general rating revaluation, formalising processes and procedures around civil penalties, and preparing for the Scottish Parliamentary General Election. The board are asked to approve the 2025-28 corporate plan and service plan.
So we have a corporate plan. It's a blockbuster document too. I'm new, so I'm relying on other members to ask any questions which are required. So do we have any questions on the corporate plan? Do we have any comments on the corporate plan? In which case, can we approve the corporate plan?
Agreed.
Agreed? Okay. That takes us on to the risk management business continuity plan. And I'm not doing that sum again. Darrell, do you want to tell us about it?
Yes, so this report provides information into the board's risk management and business continuity arrangements. The risk management strategy, which is available on the board's website, was reviewed by the management team with no changes proposed. The April review of the risk register has been included at Appendix 2, and changes are summarised at page 44 of your bundled papers. The business continuity plan has been reviewed, and a summary of minor changes are noted at page 86 of your bundled papers, and the report and appendices are presented today for noting.
So, any questions or comments on this? Well, I have a question. If we had a big IT failure, are we resilient enough to survive that? Darrell.
Yeah, so that's a fairly big question, and it would be, I suppose, depend on fact and degree. So we have all IT systems are in-house. So we have a small IT team, and we've just been through our cyber review audit, which was, well, whilst there is some recommendations to take forward, in general terms, it's put us in a reasonably good place, I would suggest. So I'd like to think that we do have safeguards and mitigations in place, albeit we all know from things going on in the world of recent times that the scale and these impacts, everyone could be susceptible to these things.
Okay, thank you for that. Thanks for that assurance. Any questions or comments? In which case is the report noted. Thank you. And now the mainstreaming equality report. And Darrell, would you tell us about that as well?
Yeah, so this item presents the latest mainstreaming and equality report, which was published on the board's website in line with requirements in April this year. The report sets out the measures being implemented to embed equality across our employment practices and service delivery. It includes statistical data by protected characteristic, reports on gender pay gap, presents our equal pay statement, and summarises our approach to promoting equality throughout procurement. Our previous outcomes showed modest improvements over the past 4 years, which is a positive step. And going forwards, our new outcomes will focus on how best we capture quality workforce information, how we can support progression within our culture for women, disabled staff and staff with caring responsibilities, and how that we can increase engagement with underrepresented communities. The board are asked to note the latest report.
So, any questions on that report? Any comments? In which case, are we noting this or agreeing it? We're noting it. Yes. So, note the report. Internal audit, page 145. And again, it's another great big report. Darrell, can you tell us the things we should be worried about?
Yeah, this report sets out the conclusions of the 3 main areas of internal audit for the year. It also includes a report on follow-up reviews and the annual report for the year. So good levels of assurance were obtained in the council tax and maintenance and accuracy of electoral register audits, and only one priority 3 recommendation was put forward and agreed within the council tax audit. A satisfactory level of assurance was provided for a cyber security audit, with 2 priority 3 recommendations also agreed. All follow-up review recommendations from previous audits have now been completed to the auditor's satisfaction. I'm not sure if Steve's actually on the call or not today, but I'm happy to take any questions, and if Steve is, I'm sure he will be too, with anything that arises from this report or the attached appendices.
Okay, so questions on the report, questions and comments. Give you a moment because it's a big report. No questions, no comments? Okay, so is the report noted? Yep. Thanks, Councillor Shepherd, for nodding. And unaudited annual accounts for the year ended 31st March. Paul, again, a report for you to introduce.
Thank you again, Convener. So this report is the unaudited accounts for the board that are coming for noting. And just to note that these accounts will now be passed to the auditor for review. You'll see from the report that the uncommitted balances held by the board increased by £60,000 at the end of the year. They now amount to £78,000 at the end of March. Key movements within the financial of the year are set out within the management commentary of the accounts. So happy to take any questions.
Are there any questions? The fact that we seem to be increasing our money rather than decreasing it is good news, I think, Paul, isn't it? We're actually that kind of shows that things are going well.
I think so. I mean, I think as the report notes, the uncommitted balances held by the board have increased at the end of the year. 12 months ago, when we looked at the accounts at that point in time, balances were significantly lower, and members of the board will also agree, or will also recall having to one-off contributions from each of the constituent authorities to top up the balances. So I think the accounts do show a successful position over what is continuing to be a very challenging financial environment, but they do demonstrate that the board is operating within the budget that's been set.
So I think we thank the officers for looking after us. And is the report noted? And that's item 16, the external audit, annual audit plan. Paul, this is you again.
So thank you again, Convener. Whilst the report's in the Treasurer's name, we're joined on the call by Audit Scotland. So with your permission, I'll hand over to Audit Scotland. I'm not sure if it's either Rachel Brown or Fiona Owens that's talking to the report today. But
well, Audit Scotland, reveal yourselves.
Hi there, it's Fiona that's on the call today.
Hello, Fiona.
So just firstly, as a bit of an introduction, just to say I'm Fiona Owens and I'm taking over as the engagement lead for this audit, having just returned from maternity leave last week. So yes, just the first committee back. So just to kind of briefly outline some of the points from our plan for the year. So page 3 outlines myself and the team are independent and able to undertake the audit of the Valuation Joint Board, and that there's no kind of independence issues being identified there as appointing me to the engagement lead. Paragraph 5 within the report sets out the scope of the audit, and it also shows that it's not just the accounts that we're looking at. We do look at kind of wider issues, but just to note, we're not doing a full wider scope audit, with it being one of the smaller bodies. This is kind of contained to the governance statement and financial sustainability, so that's the kind of two areas that we'll focus on as part of our audit for the year. You'll also see that I have to pause briefly just to see if there are any frauds that require to be brought to my attention by any of the members. If there's nothing today, please note that if there is anything that comes up as part of your day-to-day work, just to either notify myself through email or any other means that you wish to contact us. We will kind of revise this again once we come back with an annual audit report and the independent auditor's report following the end of the audit. The materiality levels again are outlined within the report, and this is based on the gross expenditure. And also to note, the reporting threshold is £4,000 for this year. All of the levels you'll see in there, such as the 2% on the materiality, are all similar levels to that were used in 2024. So there are no other factors that we've had to consider when setting our materiality levels for the year. Exhibit 2 within the report that identifies our risk of material misstatement for the year. This one is a presumed risk in auditing standards, so you will find this in every single audit plan that you look at. Unfortunately, there's no way of getting out of it for anybody, so the fraud caused by management override of controls is one that you will see as a staple if you were to look at any other annual audit report. The key audit matters that sit below this exhibit, that just outlines some other matters that we will be focusing on throughout the course of the audit. And for this year, this is the pension asset or liability valuation. And this is just because of the degree of estimation and judgment used in coming to this valuation. So it's probably more looking at the valuer and the challenges and assumptions that they are using in relation to the valuation, as opposed to anything specific for the Valuation Joint Board. Again, you'll have seen this is quite similar last year, just with the move to pension assets. Within the past couple of years, it's just something we like to look at by looking at the reasonableness of the assumptions that are used and coming to the conclusion of this. Just to note that the deadline, we're still not quite back to that pre-COVID deadline of making it towards the end of September for sign-off. However, we are working to a 17th of November sign-off this year, which again is in year with the prior year timescales. We've just unfortunately not been able to kind of move it forward this year, just with other priority audits within the wider Audit Scotland remit. And just the final thing that I wanted to highlight is the fee, which is outlined in paragraph 30 within the report, just showing that there is a £9,510 fee for the year. That was all I kind of wanted to highlight, but I'm more than happy to take any questions or comments. I'm joined by Mark Johnston on the call as well, so if there is anything of more detail that we need to go into, I'm sure Mark can assist us there.
So, members, yes. Now, because you're not on Teams, I have to remember what your name is.
Craig Fotheringham, yes. Thank you,
Councillor
Convener.
Fotheringham.
It's just a question for Fiona, if I may show my ignorance. This is my first meeting of the board. What kind of examples of fraud, if we're aware of, would we be reporting to yourself? I mean, I think I've got a fair idea, but just can you give us an example of what fraud would be? Thank you.
So it's just really any sort of fraudulent activity that you would have, whether that is to be with, individuals that are maybe, not correctly doing what they should be in terms of funds, whether there's kind of examples of collusion or things like that. We have seen that coming through. We do quarterly fraud returns, so we are aware of things that are kind of happening in the wider spectrum, but it's really anything that would be defrauding the Valuation Joint Board. So whether that's small, large, anything in the spectrum, we do like to be aware of because obviously small issues can lead into bigger issues. So it is just really any sort of fraud that would directly impact the Valuation Joint Board. We would like that to be brought to our attention.
Okay, thank you, Fiona, and thank you, Convener. Thank you.
Thanks for your question. Any other questions or comments? Not seeing any. Oh, sorry. Councillor McCobe, I can only see your, well, basically I can only see you from the nose up. So
really?
Great. So
I'm not sure what I can do about that.
Well, I just need to grow a couple of feet, I think. So go ahead with your question.
Thank you. I have two questions, if I may. The first, I guess, is to both Fiona and our Treasurer around the audit fee and how does that compare to the current year? And the second is really around the 17th of November date. You know, this really should be done a couple of months earlier. We had a target date of the 3rd of November, and while it might only seem like 2 weeks, the 3rd of November was already late. So I'm very concerned about this continuing, and I'm wondering from an Audit Scotland perspective, how do you set the priorities, and where does Tayside Valuation Joint Board fall into that priority setting in terms of getting the report finished on time? Thank you.
Yeah, I'm happy to kind of take both of those questions almost. So the fee against last year, the original fee for last year was £9,330, but then there was an offset against unspent travel of £348. So the total fee was £8,982. So an increase of £528 for the year. And that is something that's set centrally by our audit appointments team within Audit Scotland. But that's how it's kind of comparing against the prior year for the fee. And just in terms of your question and comment on the time scales, so we were working to that just as the committee date had been set. So that's the kind of 19th of November date that we are aiming for. In terms of the kind of wider, obviously I appreciate you're wondering how it's going to come back in where you sit on the priority list. So really our priority lists are deemed by those that are, you know, the bigger, more complex audits that maybe have issues, such as your councils, obviously your NHS, which happens much earlier in the year. They're all completing at the moment, but also then those audits that provide assurances to other bodies. So for instance, you know, your pension funds, whereby they might have to provide assurances to a magnitude of other bodies to allow them to sign off. As Audit Scotland as a whole, we have to try and prioritise those audits first, because if they aren't completed, you know, there's going to be a continual knock-on effect onto other audits if they then can't provide the assurances. So just unfortunately, because the Valuation Joint Board sits slightly down that priority list, it's obviously not been brought in yet. And just bearing in mind, we're also kind of carrying vacancies and things like that, trying to recruit and replace people as and when they're leaving. So there is just that kind of other factor to just be aware of in the background. But we are hoping that by the end of this appointment round, so we've got another couple of years yet, that we will have brought it fully back into that end of September deadline. So we do appreciate that it's not an ideal situation, but we're just kind of trying to work through the kind of pecking order of the audits and bring in, you know, the kind of bigger hitting and more wide ranging ones in the first instance, and then we're hoping that the others will be able to filter in after that. So like I say, I appreciate it's not an ideal situation for it to be that late, but we are trying to work on it in the back.
Thanks. Paul wants to come in. He's got some comment.
Thanks, Convener. It was just to come back on the point in relation to the fee. So just to confirm that, as with all boards, that the review, the audit for Audit Scotland did share details of the audit fee with ourselves in advance, and it was reviewed and we confirmed it seemed reasonable in light of, you know, inflationary pressures, etc., that the Audit Scotland will be facing. So we'll continue to review that and also continue to work with Audit Scotland and, you know, encourage them to work alongside internal audit, etc., and gain further assurance from elsewhere that they can, and ensure there isn't any work that's undertaken as part of the review that would be considered to be duplicated, to ensure that we are maintaining best value in terms of that fee.
So,
Thank you
Councillor
both.
McCall, are you happy with that?
Well, yes and no. I think the question about the timing, I understand about our committee timing, but really my main point was around the fact it was November. And we've heard the same arguments for a while now. And I understand your priority list. I completely get that. Obviously, in the public sector, we're party to a number of audits, and I'm aware of that. But as far as most other places have come back into line, and we've been heard about recruitment, etc., for quite some time now. And so I find it's almost counterintuitive that we're paying an increased fee for a service that isn't been delivered. It's been delivered, but it's been delivered late, and our service agreement should be for it to be delivered on time. So I think we need to get, I would like to see, Paul, Mr. Thompson, if that's okay with you, a much more detailed indication of when we will start getting this report delivered on time going forward. Thank you.
You want to come back on that, Paul?
Yeah, no, thanks, Councillor McCall, and certainly happy to pick up your point as part of any further discussions in relation to setting future years' audit plans. I think I would share your concerns in terms of, ideally we would seek to have the audit concluded before the end of September. If nothing else, it would allow us to move on with other items, particularly relating to setting the budgets, etc. But certainly happy to pick that up with Audit Scotland. And I think, as Fiona said, they're working to do everything they can to try and get that timetable back in line with what was the norm prior to COVID.
Any more questions or points on this report? In which case, can we note the report? It's noted. So that leaves us item 17 to do, which is the date of the next meeting. And it's planned for the Council Chamber on the 25th of August at 9 AM. How are members with the time, the start time? It's fine for me coming from Dundee. Does anyone else have a difficulty with 9 AM start times? You're okay? Yep. Councillor Cuthbert.
It's quite difficult to get here from Kinross by 9 o'clock. I had to leave at 7 this morning. So whether we can look at this later and come back to committee on it, but I think it would be better if it was slightly later in the day. Okay, can I ask the officers to think about this? I think we should still agree this date for now. It's difficult to change it at this stage, but could we think about whether or not it is the best time, particularly when people could be coming from any part of Perthshire or remotest Angus to get here. Are we agreeing on the date of the 25th of August 2025 at 9? Oh, sorry, Lynn, are you coming in? I can't see you. Well, I can see you now. Yeah. Councillor Shaw.
Yes, sorry, Dina. One of the issues that we have is many of us who sit on this board also sit on the board at 10 o'clock in Tayside Contract. So that was one of the reasons I'm not here sharing with you this morning, because I quickly have to go in at 10 o'clock to Tayside Contract. So that was something that I think that's always kind of had an impact on what the valuation board does, and historically when we've looked at it, that has been in the back of people's minds. Not most, but a number of us do both committees.
Thanks, Councillor Short, for that. It's a fair point, I think. But the great thing about being a councillor is that we are not operational, we just govern. So we're going to leave it to the operational folk to see if they can come up with a better solution than 9 o'clock in the future for future meetings. If we can ask that that's considered at least, and we can discuss it at a future meeting. Would that be okay? Members of the committee in agreement with that, or? Yep. Okay, so.
Sorry, convener, can I come in here? I mean, these dates were all agreed at the start of the term, and as Councillor Short rightly says, they align very much with Tayside Contracts Joint Committee. So I think if they're going to be looked at, they shouldn't be looked at in isolation. That's all I would suggest.
Absolutely, because if you change one thing, then a whole lot of other things kind of fall dominoes. That's what I'm trying to think of. That's the image. So we don't want to do that, but it would be good to try and find a way of making that change so that it's easier for people from far far-flung places to get here. So, if we're agreed on that, let's close the meeting. Thank you very much, everyone. Thanks for your attendance and for your comments, and for making me the convener, and I'll do my best to serve you well. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Good morning.